Imagine your brain as a high-powered engine, capable of astonishing speed, precision, and endurance. But without proper calibration, it sputters, stalls, and spins in circles. This is what happens when you let your mind run on default settings, guided by emotion, distraction, and outdated habits. The truth is, most people have never been taught how to take control of their mental operating system. They drift through life reacting to circumstances instead of commanding their thoughts, like a machine. They start projects, lose steam, jump to the next shiny thing, and wonder why nothing truly sticks. Let me ask you a simple question. When was the last time you trained your mind with the same discipline and repetition you'd use to master a sport or a musical instrument? The difference between people who consistently achieve their goals and those who just dream about them isn't talent. It's mental conditioning. As Tracy often says, self-discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. And the good news is, discipline is not a trait you're born with. It's a skill you can build, one precise mental protocol at a time. According to a study from Stanford University, people who engage in structured mental programming routines, like visualization, affirmation, and planning, are up to 73% more likely to follow through on difficult habits. The mind, when directed with consistency, behaves like an obedient machine. But left unchecked, it mimics a wild animal. Impulsive, lazy, and easily distracted. I once coached a young professional named James who couldn't stick to anything. His schedule was chaos, his goals were vague, and his self-confidence crumbled every time he faced resistance. But once we implemented a daily mental software routine, starting with scripting his identity, building machine-like morning rituals, and resetting dopamine triggers, his discipline became unstoppable. Within 90 days, he was waking up at 5 a.m., working out daily, and hitting his business milestones with clockwork precision. You don't need more motivation. You need a mental system, a structured, repeatable process that turns your brain into a performance engine. In the next half hour, you'll learn how to remove mental bugs that sabotage your focus, install disciplined thought patterns, like software, build ironclad routines that run without willpower, reset your brain's reward system to crave hard work, engineer a new identity based on unstoppable discipline, recover from failure like a fail-safe mechanism, and finally, keep your mind sharp with daily firmware upgrades. This isn't just motivation, it's a manual, a blueprint to make your brain your most powerful tool, because when you train your mind like a machine, you stop negotiating with laziness. You execute. Your ability to discipline yourself to set clear goals and then to work toward them every day will do more to guarantee your success than any other single factor. Train your brain. Like a machine, unlock unstoppable discipline. Mental software problem. Why your brain crashes under pressure. The human brain is an extraordinary processor, capable of over 1 quadrillion connections. Yet for many, it malfunctions not from lack of power, but from running outdated, buggy software. These are the subconscious thought loops, limiting beliefs, and habitual reactions installed over years of experience, fear, and social conditioning. When pressure builds, these internal programs start to fail. You freeze instead of act. You overthink instead of execute. You sabotage progress and call it perfectionism. In maximum achievement, you are not a victim of your past. You are a programmer of your future. Yet most people never take the time to debug their minds. Let's break it down. The average adult has 60,000 thoughts per day. And according to a study from the National Science Foundation, over 80% of those thoughts are negative and repetitive. That's like running antivirus software that tells you every second that you're not good enough. No wonder your brain slows down when challenged. I once met a talented marketing manager, let's call her Carla, who struggled with follow-through. Every time a deadline approached, she would procrastinate. When she finally delivered, it was rushed and filled with mistakes. When we traced it back, the real problem wasn't time management. It was a thought embedded deep in her mental code. I'm not smart enough to get this right. Her brain, like an old computer, crashed under the pressure of that belief. No matter how many productivity hacks she tried, nothing stuck until we rewrote the software. Here's how you start doing the same. Step 1. Identify the faulty code. Write down the most common negative statements you tell yourself under pressure. Look for patterns like, "I always mess this up," or "They'll find out I'm not good enough." Step 2. Trace the origin. Ask yourself, when did I first start believing this? Often, a single experience in childhood or early career planted the seed. Step 3. Rewrite with power statements. For every limiting belief, write its exact opposite as a command. Not as hope, but as fact. For example, "I'm not good enough" becomes, "I deliver results with clarity and calm." "I always fail under pressure" becomes, "I perform best when challenges arise." Step 4. Repeat like a programmer. Read your new commands every morning and evening. Just like a machine receives input, your brain responds to repetition. The more you reinforce, the more automatic they become. Your mind doesn't care if something is true or false. It believes what it hears most, so flood it with code that empowers performance. As Tracy emphasizes, whatever you dwell upon grows. Whatever you affirm with emotion becomes your reality. Rewiring thought patterns with deliberate commands. Discipline begins not with action, but with thought. Your thoughts are the silent instructions you give your body. Every time you say to yourself, "I can't," your brain obeys. Every time you declare, "I will," your brain listens just as clearly. This is where the real training begins. Not with effort, but with deliberate mental reprogramming. In his seminars, Tracy often reminds us of a key principle: the law of substitution. It states that your mind can only hold one thought at a time, positive or negative. You cannot think two things at once. So if you consciously insert a disciplined thought, you automatically crowd out the undisciplined one. Repetition builds dominance. The more often a thought is planted, the deeper it takes root. That's why people who constantly tell themselves, "I'm terrible at waking up early," tend to snooze every morning. Their brain simply fulfills the command it has been given. A powerful example of this comes from a sales executive named David, who always said, "I hate making cold calls." Naturally, every time his phone rang, his body tensed, his tone weakened, and his results plummeted. When we worked together, I asked him to write and repeat a new command every morning and night. "I deliver powerful calls with energy and confidence." Within 2 weeks, he reported a 40% increase in client conversions, not because of any new technique, but because his brain started obeying the new script. Let's break this process down so you can begin using it today. Choose your core. Command. Pick one specific behavior you want to dominate. For example, waking early, maintaining focus for 90 minutes, sticking to your meal plan, or finishing your daily priorities. Write the command in present tense. Your brain responds to clarity. Write it as if it is already happening. Avoid words like try, wish, or hope. Instead, write statements like, "I rise at 5 a.m. energized and ready. I execute my top priorities without delay. I train my body and mind daily." With intensity. Install the command with repetition. Speak your command out loud each morning, ideally right after waking. Then again before sleep. Repetition at these 2 points is most effective, as the brain is more suggestible during these windows. Anchor it with emotion. As you say the command, imagine how it feels to already be that version of yourself. Emotion is what turns words into wiring. Without emotion, commands remain weak. You are not just thinking differently, you are programming your operating system. The same way a coder enters a line of instruction into a machine, you're inputting identity into your mind. As Tracy once put it, your future is determined by what you say to yourself repeatedly. We've now established how to rewrite thoughts. Next, we move from internal to external structure. Let's create machine-like discipline through fixed routines that don't rely on willpower. Machine-like scheduling, the power of fixed routines. A machine performs because it runs on a fixed schedule. It does not negotiate with fatigue, hesitation, or doubt. If the code says execute at 6 a.m., the machine obeys. Now imagine if your day operated the same way. Most people rely on motivation. Disciplined people rely on systems. Your willpower is like a battery. It drains. But a structured routine is like a power outlet. It supplies energy on command. Tracy teaches this repeatedly in his workshops. Plan your day the night before. This single habit has been the keystone to success for thousands of top performers. When you schedule with clarity, you eliminate 80% of internal resistance. Consider the story of Marcus, a small business owner who struggled with scattered mornings and inconsistent results. He would wake up, check emails, scroll his phone, and hope to get focused by mid-morning. We restructured his day with what I call a machine morning, a fixed set of actions executed in sequence, without thought. Within 1 month, his output had doubled and his stress levels dropped by half. Define your first 90 minutes. Decide what your machine morning looks like. Choose 3 to 5 actions that energize and focus you. For example, wake at 6 a.m., 10 minutes of silence or deep breathing, 20 minutes of physical movement, 15 minutes reviewing your goals and priorities. Begin deep work by 7 a.m. Preload the night before. Each evening, write down your top 3 goals for the next day. Then, lay out everything you'll need to begin immediately in the morning. Clothes, tools, notes, or materials. Protect the routine with a rule. Create a simple rule. No phone, no emails, no distractions until your core routine is complete. Machines. Don't ask for input. They follow protocol. Track consistency. Use a visual tracker. Every day you follow your fixed routine, mark it. When you hit 7 days in a row, reward yourself. When you miss a day, restart the count. You're building not just behavior, but identity. According to research published in the European Journal of Social Psychology, it takes an average of 66 days to form a habit. But what matters more than speed is consistency. Machines are reliable because they repeat. Discipline is a habit that begins with scheduling. If it's not on your calendar, it's not real. The dopamine reset. Training your reward circuits. Your brain has a built-in reward system that determines what you crave, pursue, and repeat. It's called dopamine, and it acts like fuel for your motivation engine. When used correctly, it drives massive action. When abused, it creates addiction to comfort, distraction, and inaction. Most people unknowingly sabotage their own discipline by overstimulating their dopamine system. Social media, ultra-processed foods, constant novelty. Each one floods your brain with dopamine. The problem is not the dopamine itself, but the speed and intensity with which it is triggered. Like revving an engine too hard too often, the system begins to wear down. A study from Harvard University found that individuals who intentionally restrict short-term pleasure and focus on effort-based rewards show significantly higher levels of sustained motivation and emotional resilience. The mind trained to earn its dopamine becomes powerful. The one that seeks shortcuts becomes weak. Take Alex, a software developer who struggled to stay focused for more than 20 minutes. Every task felt like a mountain. But after initiating a 30-day dopamine reset, eliminating social media before noon, replacing phone scrolling with reading, and reserving coffee only after deep work, he doubled his output and recovered his mental edge. Let's create your own dopamine reset protocol. Identify your fast dopamine sources. Make a list of everything that gives you a quick rush without meaningful effort. This could be social media, junk food, compulsive web browsing, excessive texting, video games. Circle the top 2 that consume the most time or weaken your discipline. Replace each one with a slow reward. Now choose one discipline-building activity to install in its place. For example, instead of social media in the morning, read 10 pages from a performance book. Instead of evening snacking, do a short workout or walk. Instead of checking messages constantly, use scheduled communication blocks. Introduce a delayed reward practice. Set a rule. No dopamine-triggering activity until your most important task is complete. This builds anticipation and retrains your system to associate pleasure with productivity. Reflect and reinforce. At the end of each day, write down one effort you're proud of. This journaling habit strengthens the link between action and reward. You are not eliminating joy. You are engineering it. You're turning your brain from a pleasure junkie into a focused performer. The difference between successful people and others is that successful people do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not, and they train themselves to enjoy the process. Discipline through identity engineering. You cannot outperform your self-image. If you see yourself as inconsistent, you will act inconsistently. If you believe you are someone who never finishes what they start, that belief becomes your reality, no matter how many techniques you try. Machines do not question their identity. They are built for purpose and perform accordingly. You must do the same. To unlock unstoppable discipline, you must consciously construct a new identity, a mental blueprint of who you are becoming. You become what you think about most of the time. If you constantly think about how undisciplined you are, that thought reinforces itself. But if you begin to see yourself as a focused, driven, high-performance person, your behavior starts to match that vision. There is a psychological term for this: identity-based behavior. Studies in behavioral science show that people who align their actions with their self-image are far more likely to sustain long-term change. The action follows the identity, not the other way around. Let me tell you about Nicole, a project manager, who used to label herself as a chronic procrastinator. That single label dictated her choices every day. When we worked together, I gave her one instruction: stop trying to change your habits and start changing your identity. She wrote a statement: I am the type of person who finishes what I start. She read it twice a day, acted as if it were true, and within 8 weeks, she had eliminated over 90% of her delays. You can do the same. Define the identity you want. Ask yourself, who would I be if I were truly disciplined? Write one sentence that reflects that version of you. Examples: I am someone who honors my commitments. I take action immediately, without hesitation. I follow through, even when it's hard. Create a daily identity ritual. Each morning, read your identity statement aloud. Then take one action that proves it. The brain trusts behavior more than words. The more you act like your ideal self, the faster you become it. Track identity. Wins. Keep a simple log of behaviors that align with your new identity. This creates evidence that reinforces the belief. Discipline grows when it is confirmed daily. Speak with precision. Eliminate phrases like "I'm trying," "I hope," or "I'm not sure." Replace them with direct statements of who you are becoming. You are no longer reacting to life. You are building the internal machinery that drives it. Successful people think in terms of identity and outcomes. They don't ask what feels easy. They ask, who must I become to achieve what I want? Overcoming malfunctions. Dealing with setbacks like a machine. Even the most sophisticated machines encounter malfunctions. The difference is, they are designed with recovery systems. When an aircraft engine loses power, it switches automatically to a fail-safe protocol. No drama, no panic, just recalibration and relaunch. That is how your mind must operate under pressure. Discipline is not the absence of failure. It is the ability to restart without hesitation. Most people fall into a toxic loop when they slip. They miss one workout, one task, one early morning, and they spiral into guilt and paralysis. But high performers, like machines, expect disruption and prepare for it in advance. Tracy often teaches that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the process. The key is to use each setback as a trigger for an immediate reset. Let me share the example of Javier, a young entrepreneur who struggled with maintaining discipline during travel. Every trip derailed his habits, and each return felt like starting from zero. We installed a simple 3-step recovery protocol. Now, whenever he goes off course, he activates the sequence and is back on track in under 24 hours. Create a recovery statement. Write a phrase that neutralizes guilt and restores focus. For example, I am not my slip. I return stronger. Read this immediately after a missed action. Identify the default action. Choose one reliable behavior you can do even in low states. It should be simple and meaningful. Examples: 5 minutes of reading, 10 push-ups, writing your top goal for the day. This default anchors your identity even in chaos. Log the reset. Each time you activate your recovery, write it down. This builds confidence. You begin to see yourself not as someone who avoids failure, but as someone who rebounds with strength. Avoid all or nothing thinking. Discipline is a spectrum, not perfection. Machines adjust their output. So can you. Missing one moment does not erase your momentum. It tests and refines it. According to a study from the University of Scranton, people who have a predefined plan for setbacks are over 60% more likely to stick with new habits long-term. Tracy says, successful people fail fast and forward. They don't repeat mistakes. They use them. With this reset system in place, you are no longer a prisoner of your past. You are a designer of rapid recovery, mental firmware updates, the habit of continuous learning. Machines operate at their best when they run the latest software. Your brain works the same way. To maintain peak discipline, your mind requires regular upgrades. Without new inputs, you begin to repeat old patterns. Without new ideas, your thinking becomes outdated. Without learning, growth halts. The disciplined mind is not rigid. It is adaptive, precise, and always improving. Tracy teaches that reading even 30 minutes a day on your most important goal can place you in the top 5% of your field. It is not about reading for entertainment. It is about installing strategic mental upgrades, insights, methods, and models that refine your performance. Think of your mind as a living system. If you do not feed it intentionally, it defaults to whatever is easiest: distraction, doubt, and delay. Take Lena, a financial consultant who used to feel stuck in cycles of burnout. Her days were filled with noise, her focus was scattered, and her motivation faded quickly. She made one small change. Every morning, before opening her inbox, she read 10 pages from a book on mastery and peak performance. That one habit shifted her mindset. Her clients noticed. Her productivity soared. She became sharper, calmer, and more in control. Step 1. Choose a core learning theme. Pick one area of your life where discipline is essential right now. Examples: time management, communication, fitness, leadership. Select content that challenges and excites you. Step 2. Establish a daily learning window. Set a specific time each day to consume new information. Morning and pre-sleep are ideal. Keep it short and consistent. 15 to 30 minutes is enough to rewire thought patterns. Step 3. Integrate learning with application. After each session, write one action you can apply immediately. Knowledge without action is noise. Even one small shift per day compounds into exponential growth. Step 4. reflect weekly. Once a week, review what you've learned. Ask yourself, how have I improved? What new pattern have I installed? This reflection cements your upgrades. Research from the University of London shows that active learners not only perform better under pressure, but also report higher levels of self-esteem and clarity. Continuous learning is the minimum requirement for success in any field. With each new insight, you sharpen your mind. With each new behavior, you harden your habits. And with each repetition, you become less like the old version of yourself, and more like the machine you were meant to be.